Texas. Do we need to turn?
It's fine. It just feels very dark in here.
Okay. Do you want me to do that?
No, it's okay. It's over. Good afternoon and welcome to our live stream.
Hello.
Da, 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 da. Lovely to see all of your comments so far and having a little chat between yourselves there. We are talking about the 28mm focal length today, partly because Nikon announced a thing yesterday.
Yes, I thought you were like letting me to continue. With
I was waiting to see if you were going to
pick the pause. You can go further. So yeah, the modern version of 28mm, was it 2.8? Yeah, has been announced. So that will be available hopefully soon. So we thought, why not to talk about all the 28s that Nikon ever made?
Yeah, exactly. Just to clarify for anyone who hasn't seen the announcement yet, because we haven't been able to put out a newsletter about it, but the 28mm pancake, not pancake, for the Z lenses came out, as you may recall, with the ZFC. I would show you one, except it's in my house. So I didn't bring it in. I forgot. Oops.
As you do.
Because we were doing a review on it yesterday.
Yeah, it's only a live stream on 28mm lenses.
Yes, I know. Sorry about that. But the non-special edition, so the version without the little chrome ring around it, that one, which looks like this one but isn't this one.
So I'll just hide 14 here with my finger. So that's basically looks very similar to this, a little bit smaller, but the design styling is about the same, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that came out yesterday. In the UK, it's £50 cheaper than the special edition version. So you pay an extra £50 for that chrome ring.
So 249 for the modern version, and then 299 for the retro. I want to know, which version do you prefer?
Yeah.
Do you lean more towards retro styling or more towards modern styling?
So that's what we're going to chat about. But we've got a few other things that we need to cover first. So before I forget, hello to so many of you, everywhere from the south of Sweden to Connecticut to Chelmsford. It's very exotic. To Orapuki in New Zealand, Texas, and North Yorkshire, and goodness gracious. Absolutely delighted to have you here today with us. A couple of honourable mentions. I but missed in the Coffee Fund contributions last week. Michael, I'm very sorry.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much for your contribution to the Coffee Fund. Massive thank you to Ian, you know who you are, for your contribution to the Coffee Fund. Anyone that I've missed, I will have a little look in the old, was that an ad?
No, it was... for some reason blanking out.
Oh, that's fun.
Good question.
Well, we have an excellent connection according to this, so...
Okay, but we don't see our faces in there? Is that normal?
No, but they can see us, so that's all that
All right,
matters.
can you see us? Is everything all right with the stream?
You're watching it. So.
Well, I'm watching myself in delay. Maybe they have
That's
like
normal.
us a little bit in the future, like 10 seconds in the future.
Completely normal.
All right, well, we'll be back to normal, I guess.
Yeah, back to normal of there always being something wrong. Thank you, Jeremy, for your contribution to the Coffee Fund, and hello to you in Cornwall. Lee asks, does the SE version take photos that are £50 better? That's a great question.
Does it make you a better photographer?
Well, I've managed to actually play with the special edition version. Nikon kindly loaned it to me with a ZFC to do a review on for a couple of weeks. So I have to give it back next week, unfortunately. But Imtiaz K says there was a short blackout, but it's all good now. Thank you for confirming. Don't know what's going on there. Nothing to do with me. Honest.
Yeah, I'm just looking.
Yeah.
So Atan said Lesotho also represented, and I was trying to find the country of Lesotho on the map, and it's somewhere in Africa. That's incredible.
Wow. Hello. Gosh, we really are multinational. Ab, we're not talking about the Z9 today. Shh.
No, we haven't Z9 rest week.
Yeah.
There's so much information. I think it's kind of well oversaturated right now, and I think if you want to know about that camera, there's just so much content created around it. So
yeah.
We are preparing something special. Always.
Always. Got something up our sleeves.
Exactly.
But in the meantime, no, today we're not going to talk about the Z9. I think also that if you haven't had your question about the Z9 answered by now, then the answer doesn't exist. Because there is so much information out there. Oh dear. Thank you, Terry and Ian and Michael, again, for your contribution to the Coffee Fund. Super appreciated. Dennis said, too bad this can't be done in the Zoom session. Oh, that would be crazy. It would be crazy. And thank you, Adrian, for your contributions to the Coffee Fund as well. I do try and pick them up as they come in, but I do miss them sometimes. So sorry, I kind of got slightly sidetracked there, but a couple of orders of business before we start talking about 28.
True. So we need to kind of manage things. Otherwise, we tend to forget them. We say, oh, we're going to do it next week. And then 2 weeks later, there's still nothing.
Exactly. So first up, look what arrived in the post today.
Oh, yes.
So our deliveries of the new Nikon Owner magazine just arrived. This is a beautiful, beautiful magazine. And there's an article about us in it, funnily enough, that I wrote.
These people. That we wrote about ourselves.
Con didn't write it, but his picture snuck in.
Can I hold this? Here's the little call for action.
Yeah.
If you got one of those working, it's a Nikon R10, and who can lend it to us for about 2 weeks. We have this crazy idea where we want to shoot the whole YouTube video, a review on this camera shot on that camera, so Nikon R10. We have that one, but it's not a working camera, unfortunately. Something broke there and no one can fix them nowadays.
It's very sad.
So if we can borrow one from you, do let us know.
Yeah, we'd love it. We've got all kinds of ideas, but sometimes we can't sort of get hold of the thing. So that's one thing. But the magazine itself has just come out.
I was holding it here, and it's not in the frame. I was pointing at the camera. Here it is. Here it is. So
that's it.
Or Nikon R8 as well. Brilliant camera. So we just want to do that for the love of Nikon, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Just because for the sake of doing something that is purely Nikon and shooting video on a Nikon cine camera, I think would be really, really cool.
Super 8.
Yeah.
With no audio.
Yeah.
That's going to be amazing.
It's going to be so interesting. Who's going to edit that?
I'll take this responsibility.
Okay,
hopefully I can fix something
Thank
together.
you. Yes, Sonoy said, hold the magazine so we can see it. So those of you who are already subscribed to the physical magazine, so those of you that get it through the post, you will get that very, very soon. Those of you that are online subscribers will have already received your flippable e-version in your inbox. We are going to have a special offer on Nikon Owner for the Black Friday week, which I will talk about next week.
Yeah, but the funny thing is I'm already getting emails from pretty much every single dealer saying Black Friday is here. It's like, it's next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
I know it's very confusing, but anyway, yeah. So we will, for those of you who haven't yet taken advantage of getting this wonderful magazine, you will be able to.
Quick question. So you write technical articles for the magazine. So what article did you write for this one?
This one was actually my review of the 50mm macro.
Okay.
Yeah. Because Simon Stafford, the wonderful Simon, reviewed the 105, but the 50 isn't something that he'd review. Whereas for me, that's kind of my go-to macro focal length. So
Simon reviews the important stuff, and then the rest is for Becky.
Not true, but he does kind of get to pick and choose what he wants to review, and I review the things in between. And
I
then
review lens caps.
It's good. Yeah, someone needs to do it. So that's Nikon Owner. As part of Nikon Owner, you may have already received this in your inboxes, but we have a very special Christmas event online with the venerable Joe McNally.
I wish we can zoom out and we can just show this post.
Yeah, it's there, believe me, when I say it. But for those of you who haven't subscribe to our e-newsletter, you can do so. I think it's in the description box. But Joe is going to be doing a very special event with us in December. If you're a Nikon Owner subscriber, then the event cost is just £25, whereas a non-subscriber is £85. It's an evening with Joe McNally, so well worth attending, and we'll have more information next week because we have the man himself coming into the shop.
That's true. Well, Joe's already in town, so he came in yesterday just say hi out of the blue, which was really nice.
Yeah, it was really, really nice to see him. So thank you, Joe, for joining us, and we will see him for a longer period of time next week. I think I've covered everything that we needed to cover at the beginning.
Are you going to do the giveaway
at the end?
At the end,
we've got 2 giveaways for you, so I will do those at the end. Right, so on the 28mm. Believe it or not, according to the very well-written Peter Bratsko, I don't know if I can pronounce that.
I call it Little Red Book.
The Little Red Book. This is our Little Red Book. So in 1959, no, sorry, 1952.
1952.
Wrong page. I tabbed the wrong page. No, I didn't. I just opened the wrong page. In 1952, Nikon released the 28mm 3.5 or 2.8 centimeter, as it was called then. I actually have a little picture. We didn't have one in the shop, very sadly. But this was the first of Nikon's wider lenses. After the 5 centimeter, which was kind of the go-to standard, 28mm was the first wide angle one that they did. Later on, they did even wider. They did a 2.1 centimeter, and they did a 2.5 centimeters, so 25mm. But Ed's listening to us while riding his bike. That's a creative way to listen to the live
But
stream.
be careful, though. Yeah, mind the road.
Yeah, don't watch us.
Yeah.
We won't mind for road safety. So I'm just going to show you here. If you can see, I don't know if you can see the cursor, but this little lens here, very tiny form factor, was the 2.8 centimeter. That was the first one they did, and that was an f3.5 lens. It actually had 2 threads, one for filters and then an external thread. So it was a 43mm thread and a 26.5mm thread. It's absolutely tiny. So that was the very, very first one that they produced. And then in true Peter style, actually, the rest of the 28s are at the back of the book. I never quite understand
As
how
you
to
do, yeah.
find things here. I wish I had one to show you. It's a lens that I have not tried.
Which lens did you shot with? 35 when you reviewed SP?
5 centimeter 1.1.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah, I picked a fancy one. That's right, because I like a challenge. And it's a beautiful lens. And one day we will actually do a review on that. As Graham said, the 28 1.4, it's actually an E, not a G, Graham, but the E, which is the last F mount version.
And the best one.
Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I think, and Jan said, I like the 28mm, and if you use it on a 1.5 crop factor, you get a nifty 42mm. I truly agree with you there, Jan. I think 28mm is an odd kind of focal length. It's not for everyone. What are your thoughts?
It is for me.
It is for you. It is what for you?
Well, generally when you start your photography journey, and you kind of, a lot of people get in 50, or 35 to start with.
Yeah.
And then, like I was, at the time, I was really into documentary photography. And a lot of documentary photography of that time came from wide-angle lens. And they generally were a little bit wider than 28.
Yeah.
Than 35 mm.
Yeah.
So, so it was a lot of, like, let's say, Magnum-style photographs. So for me, 28 was the kind of this documentary street life look. The problem with 28mm, if you're shooting this type of work, you have to be really, really close to the subject. Because if the subject is quite far away, everything looks quite boring. So compared to 35, which is a little bit more compressed, and it makes it look nice.
Yes.
So with 28, you almost need to be very, very close to the subject. And when you start to do this, you obviously realize that maybe I'm not the right person for that. Maybe I'm not the right person to get into the people's faces. Yeah, exactly. So, but for me, definitely 28 was the one to go. And with the time, I'm kind of more switched to a 35. But
it's interesting because 28 is like almost smack bang in the middle between the 35 and the 24.
Yeah.
And I think people either choose a 24 or they choose 28 or they choose 35. You don't usually find someone with all three.
Yeah, well, if you go 35, then you go with 24-20 as your wider angle lens. But if you go 28, it's highly unlikely you'll get 35 because they're so close.
Yeah, exactly. I had the D version, which we'll talk about in a minute, but I also had the 28 1.8 for a while. And then I switched to the 20 because I preferred the 35. So I ended up with that kind of setup. But Imtiaz, sorry, I can't pronounce your handle there, says we're a bit tight. I think we're going to be up close and personal for this one. You want to zoom us out?
Do you want me to zoom out?
Well, then you can't see what you... Oh, you can.
I can.
Give us a bit more breathing space.
So I'm going to go just a little...
Oh, I have to guide you.
Is that good enough?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, my posters look wonky, though. That's the Joe McNally poster. You still can't see it.
Now we have to clean up at the back.
We were just hiding a multitude of sins that you've now exposed.
This is the only piece of the wall that has left. There's literally just clouds and sky behind.
That's right, exactly. Thank you to Michael for your contribution to the Coffee Fund, and Fred and Jean. Thank you so much, all of you, for that. That's absolutely amazing. I need some hot toddy after this, I think. We were outside for 5 hours doing a shoot yesterday, and it's taken its toll, unfortunately, on me. I might sound a bit hoarse today.
I'm feeling it as well.
Yeah, exactly. The things that we do for the channel.
It's like Hanover, but from fresh air.
Yeah, exactly. So Russell says, I love 28 because a few steps forward and you have 35, a few steps back and you have 24.
True.
It's true. It's a very versatile focal length. So after the 3.5 the little sort of pancake almost style rangefinder lens.
Yes.
We then go to the AIs and the AISs.
Yeah, so that starts in 1959.
Yeah. So we had the 3.5. Now I've actually got a pre-AI 28 millimeter f3.5, which was one of the very early versions, and I had it was actually converted to AI when I purchased it.
Okay.
So had the official proper ring on the bottom. If you don't know the difference between pre-AI and AI and AIS, we've got a video on the channel which is very short, but we'll just explain the differences to you. But the beauty of that pre-AI lens being converted is it means I can use it on my FM3A, on my f6, I can use it on my Z6, I can use it on pretty much anything.
That's true.
And although some people at the time, I think, complained that maybe it wasn't as sharp, or later on it was improved in the 2.8 version, and then the f2, which is like the ultimate, which we've got one here, I'll show you in a minute. The 3.5 is a very capable lens, and it's so small that you can kind of slip it on the camera. And although it's not pancake, it's very comfortable to carry around.
But you've done some tests, and you said that 3.5 is almost as good as 2.8.
Yeah. So I borrowed the 28. I actually borrowed the 328. So I had the 28 f 3.5, which is mine, the 2.8, and the f2, because we were doing all that film vlogging, and I thought, why not? You can never have too many 28s, right? So I did a comparison. I shot the roll of film on the f3 HP that I was using at the time, and same setup. Shooting at the closest focusing distance and kind of wide open, just to see how much of a difference you would get on film with that shallow depth of field. Was 3.5, was that half a stop between 3.5 and 2.8 going to make that much of a difference? And honestly, when I looked at the results, no, it made very little difference.
Did it make any difference in vignetting?
No.
No, okay.
Actually, and that was kind of interesting. I wondered if maybe I'd shot something with more sort of straight lines in it, if I would have seen a bit more distortion or something like that. I don't know what the kind of selling point apart from the extra half a stop is for the 2.8 over the 3.5. But the 3.5, as someone mentioned earlier that I have missed, someone said, Borderlands, who has the 28mm 3.5 AIS, says it wasn't made for long. They switched from the 3.5 to the 2.8 as their kind of staple going forwards. So yeah.
Slight tweak of a design.
Yeah, I think that they just decided... Actually, we can make a 2.8 probably at about the same price point, so why bother with a 3.5?
Yeah, and then later on they released the F2 version as well, and then I think it doesn't make sense to run three models side by side, isn't it?
Exactly. So just to show you a little bit of a size comparison here, I don't have any pre-AIs here, so unfortunately I can't show you those. I can show you pictures of those. But that's the F2. You see that? That's the 2.8. So you see the size difference there. And imagine the 3.5... I'm sorry, because we've got our faces in the way. Hide your face, Con. It will focus. It didn't work. It's this new firmware. It's too good.
It's too good. It's just tricking our eyes.
It's tricking our faces.
Through the fingers.
Yeah, exactly. So, but you can kind of see the difference. There's also a weight difference.
Yeah.
A considerable weight difference. And then the 3.5 is smaller even than this little one. So if you think about it.
And just for comparison with 28 1.4,
yeah.
So even 28 f2, looks very light and portable compared to this one.
It does, but it doesn't autofocus, and it doesn't have an electromagnetic diaphragm or a silent wave motor.
Or fields. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that was my personal kind of experience, let's say, on the 28. David, who's Dixon, said, I have the radioactive 28mm, lovely yellow tint.
Picked up from Chernobyl?
I think that the radioactive one was a pre-AI one that was then later, basically the glass on the inside or the coatings. Yeah. Some of the lenses, they say, have radioactive coatings, and they have this kind of tint to them.
My lens is glowing at night. What's
glow
up with
in the
that?
dark. Well, for example, the 5cm f2 pre-AI is known to have certain coatings that would now no longer pass health and safety, which are very kind of pinkish.
Yeah, you can. It's that's how they invented the wireless charging, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Borderlands said the only problem with the 28 3.5 was a darker screen with an SLR. Yeah. However, you can shoot street hyperfocal with the 28, no problem. That's a good tip for anyone who's picked one of those up.
But yeah, that's true. Focusing in low light at 3.5, I believe it's going to be challenging compared to something like f2.
It's true. That is one thing I do find quite difficult. Michael said all press work group shots got covered by my 35 to 70. Never needed to consider a 28 mil. It's interesting if 35 is the widest that you need.
Yeah,
do everything.
I think 28 is really a lens is not something that you would genuinely use for this type of photography. You say, you don't, because you don't need a distortion. And the thing of the early design of these lenses, let's compare, let's say, these two lenses side by side. Distortion control of this lens is amazing. So you can literally use a 35 mil because there's pretty much no distortion. And that's how much design has evolved from, let's say, 1952. Those lenses are very small and portable. And therefore, you do get distortion. So I would say, yeah, for groups of people, maybe it's not ideal. But for documentary style photography, where you want to keep small and light and fit a lot of things, especially for indoors usage, that is a really good lens. And sometimes 35 would be a little bit tight for this type of work. So as I always say, what, horses for courses or courses for horses?
It's horses for courses.
One of those.
Between the horses and Sam's Shetland joke. It's all about horses today. Atang said, how is the distortion around those focal lengths, especially on a full frame sensor? This is a great question.
No, I just covered it.
Yeah, I know, but just generally for when you say around those focal lengths, you will find that the wider lenses like the 20 will distort a lot
so
more.
the smaller the number on focal distance, so say 24-20, the wider viewing angles become, so you get a lot more distortions. Once you go higher, so say 35, we get less distortion, and effectively 50 is considered to be basically the lens that the way we see the world. So technically you shouldn't get much distortion. You generally will get it if you do really close up, let's say portrait of a face or something like this.
Now, after I'm kind of trying to keep it in the timeline of when Nikon were bringing things out, but Peter doesn't put them in date sequence, which is very annoying. So you have to dart between the pages. So after we had the 28mm f3.5, of which there are no less than, one of the pre-AI, 1, 2, that was a type 2. Version 3 was a coated one. Version 4 was the f22 minimum aperture version, which was type 4. And then they did the AI conversion and the AIS. So we had 4 pre-AI versions, an AI and an AIS.
So the AIS version, which was the last of them all, was manufactured between 1981 and 1983.
There you go.
And the first one,
short run.
Yeah, and first one was released in 1959.
Yeah.
So they had them for a while.
Yes, exactly. Okay, that's very true. It was a long-standing lens, and when you have a look at you will be familiar if you're a regular viewer. You'll be very familiar with this website. Let me just find it for you. So this is photosynthesis.co.nz. This is run by a dear friend of the shop, Roland. He lists every single thing. It's a wealth of information. And I've just picked out the serial numbers page. If I just show you the top of the page here, you can choose serial numbers, specifications, what accessories go with what. And it's really, really useful. And then you've got quick links to the focal lengths that you need. So if you're trying to identify, for example, the age of your particular lens, you've got the serial number range. Let's do a little experiment here. So we've got this 28mm f2 and the serial number starts, let's go down to the f2s. There we go. The serial number starts 584. So it's going to sit in this batch here. So it's going to be somewhere I would guess around 83, something like that, based on this time frame here. So it's really, really useful to just have that. It's, as I say, photosynthesis.co.nz, and it's also known as Roland's Pages, and it's just a useful tool to have if you're trying to age your lens or identify what hood works with it or anything like that. It's absolutely fantastic. So I often use that when I'm trying to gauge how old something is.
So while this one was out, then in 1971, they released the F2 version.
Right.
And only in 1975, the 2.8 version came out.
Yeah. Which
is very interesting. So it took them some time just to go from 3.5 to F2 aperture, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I wonder why the change from 3.5 to 2.8. I mean, obviously, do you remember you found this 1001 Nights?
Yes.
Nikon article. If you're a watcher of the Nikon report, sometimes we sort of highlight certain articles that we found. And one of the articles is actually on the 28mm f2.8 specifically, because that then ended up being kind of like a long-standing standard 28mm for people. Vahography, hello.
Hello.
Rock and roll. Yes, we should definitely do something. Please drop us a line. It would be wonderful. Some of you might have seen we did a little interview with Ryan Troy last week, which was actually, was it Monday? What day
Yeah, we finished recording the podcast.
It's like, what happened
And then,
this week?
hour later, we got in touch with Ryan, and we had a wonderful talk.
It was really, really nice. So, so do check out Ryan's channel if you haven't already. I love the kind of Nikon community on YouTube talking to each other. It's like a little family.
It's funny, 'cause, like, if you would go there like maybe a year ago, there wasn't so much around. And I'm really glad that just community itself kind of step up and people start to create content around Nikon, especially. Remember when we had the Love of Z's live stream, which was quite polarizing because there was so much negative press about Nikon Zs at the time.
It's really weird, yeah.
And I'm really glad that you come back now and you actually have a lot of content created around Nikon and people using Nikon. So not just loving Nikon. It's not about brand loyalty or anything, but people love using the equipment they buy, and they talk about the equipment and the experience with it, which is amazing. So it's not just a kind of a blind saying, "Oh, Nikon is better than no one else." No, it's experience that people share.
Yeah, and speaking of, I'm completely going to change subject now, but speaking of the love of photography, right? Gray was telling us this story this morning about a particular very famous photographer that we're going to talk about in the Nikon report next week, but how he had raised the question, he was being interviewed by Amateur Photographer and had raised the question, why was I sent someone to interview me from an amateur magazine? Why not a professional magazine? And the interviewer had said, actually, no, the word amateur comes from the French meaning, which is the love of. So an amateur was originally defined as somebody who enjoyed an activity and did it enough, but didn't have to make a living from it. And I thought, how great is that?
That's true.
I didn't know that before. And obviously that is the 1884, 1889, the Amateur Photographer was first published. It's the one, it's the oldest.
Yeah, it's more than 100 years, for sure.
So it was that sort of potentially slightly archaic definition. But I think that still very much applies to a lot of us.
We actually have a really good culture of British photography magazines because BJP is over 100 years old as well, British Journal of Photography, and Amateur Photography has been over 100 years. That's incredible. And still going strong, which is really good. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I thought we were all, in a lot of ways, we're all amateurs. Obviously, some of us are professionals and we make our money from it, but then the vast majority of us are amateurs in a non-negative connotation. Yeah. I think... I always, when people say I'm a professional photographer, it's such a blurred line nowadays that we all junior professional photographers. But the definition, if you look at this as, people who are making the most of their living from actually their photography jobs. Exactly. Yes. Anyway, so I thought that was quite a cool little anecdote. Hope you enjoyed that slight deviation from today's program. So there's a lot of talk about the radioactivity in these lenses. So Dixon said the radioactivity is not from coatings, but from the thorium grown into the glass elements. And then there were a couple of people saying, would that cause long-term issues in terms of contact with radioactivity? It decays, but it a little bit won't hurt you, sort of thing. And to be honest, actually, like someone said, there's no more radioactive harm from that lens than there is from, for example, the parts in your computer or in your phone or anything like that. But, it's there. It is a fact. There's like a little bit of sun that won't harm you, but if you daze on the sun on the beach and then, you look like a crayfish, then probably not. Yeah, exactly. Baxter says, I consider myself to be an enthusiastic amateur snapper. So there you go. Well, that's the thing. I think, like I'm, like if someone says, like, I don't want to call myself professional photographer. No. I think I do have professional commercial jobs. Yes. I do that. It's not my main source of living, but, I wouldn't call myself professional photographer, and I'm very happy with it. Yeah, so exactly. And I particularly like that definition. John says, I bought the 28 f2.8 SE Nikon Z last night here in Dubai. I love the look, feel and heft of it. It is a lovely lens. I actually, yesterday when we were out and about, I had the 28 in my pocket to then change between the lens I had on the ZFC. And it was very pocketable. It was very easy to just change over. And I personally really like it on a DX crop. That's
I
true.
like that focal length on a
And the
DX
thing
Pro.
is, when the people say, well, there's a ZFC package comes with 16-50 and you can get a package with 28mm.
Yeah.
Both lenses are really good for ZFC because they're both portable. So you can have your 28 as your 40mm equivalent for very nice kind of like if you want to have like prime lens to use with. But then 16-50 is a really good kind of street travel lens. So if you, let's say if you go to Paris for like a weekend or something, then it's a nice lens to have.
Yeah, exactly. I do find that sometimes 35 isn't just quite wide enough for me. I do love 35 as a focal length. I think the 35 1.4 is a beautiful lens, but 28 is just a bit better.
I agree with you. For me, that's why I don't know why, but yeah, I used to shoot 35,
Yeah.
and now like I'm shooting 40 mostly. And for me, this 28-40 setup works really well because it's eliminated 35 out of the picture and 50mm as well.
Yes. Exactly. So I love the radioactivity jokes. Kotick Timmy said some people hear the word radioactivity and they go into meltdown. And then Jeremy said Cornish granite is more radioactive. Cornish men glow in the dark. Yeah, don't worry about the radioactivity statement. It's just more that it gives the lens an interesting characteristic. It's kind of, as I think Dixon was saying, it's like a yellow tint. And the 5cm f2 was also known for this kind of this strange tone or tint to older lenses where it would go slightly pinkish looking.
So you get better tones.
It's characterful is what I'd say.
Nice.
So now after the AI and the AIS, we had the AF.
Yes.
So there were two AF lenses. We had the AF originally, the non-D. Did you bring the non-D?
No. It looks pretty much the same. The only thing is here they have a little switch to lock the aperture ring, and they had a screw instead for on the non-D version.
That's right, yeah. And it's a slightly different focusing ring as well. It's a plastic focusing ring.
I think this personal one I probably will buy today.
That exact lens.
Yeah, I've kind of rekindled
sorry.
my love to f100, kind of coming back to my first Nikon and starting to shoot with it. And I've realized that I actually want to have very small lenses. Yes, I have the G glass, but it's much larger. So like 28 1G, the 28 1.8G is twice the size of this. But for film camera, I want something portable. And f100 is not a small camera, so you want to keep it kind of fairly compact. And
I agree.
that's the one I'm going to be getting, as well as probably 35 at some point, and then I'll choose one up.
And then see which one you use the most
Exactly.
and go from there. So they also produced, wow, that's cool. Don't know if you can hear that. It looks like we're dancing to nothing, but there's some very loud music outside. There was a comment a little bit earlier, and I'm sorry I missed who said it, but the 28 1.4D. Do you remember that one?
Yes.
Yes.
That's a collectible one.
It is. I can probably show you a picture of it. Is there a picture of it on this thing that I found here? Let me just have a look.
There's a picture of it on photosynthesis.
Yes, that's very true. So just to show you what it looks like, if I can get myself together here. It's going so well.
Well, while you're looking for that, only 7,333 lenses were ever produced.
Really?
Yeah.
See, because this, despite being quite a popular sort of concept, a 1.4 nice bright aperture wide angle lens, they are not very common at all. It was brought out in 1993. And I know a few people sort of swear by this lens. I think these days it's a little bit more of a kind of nice to have collector's item than a usable item. I personally used a sample we had, must be going on for about 7-8 years ago now.
That's true. I remember about 10 or 13 years ago, we've sold one for about 3,500 or something like this. So they were quite expensive lenses. Nowadays, something like this, which is about 1,500 to 2,000 pounds, is a lot better optically compared to the D version. Yes.
Dominic said, is your thing the Mir website? Yes. That's one of them. It's one of the places that I go to. MIR.com, I think, as it is also an amazing resource. I mean, if you're like a real Nikon nerd, then, and I'm speaking entirely for myself here, then photosynthesis and MIR.com, both of those websites are just incredible wealths of knowledge. If you want to know a particular accessory that worked with, or what were the various different versions of the F4 or something like that, there is the place to go. Also, I mean, we have a whole bookshelf of books. So we have the compendiums, we have Peter Bradsko's little red book, which I like very much, except for the fact that it's not in any particular order. But yeah. Oh, Randall, thank you so much for your contribution to the coffin. Amazing. He says, would you rather have the 28mm kit lens for the ZFC or the 28 that's sold separately? Are you using the grip on the ZFC from Small Rig? Now, this is a great question, Randall. I was going to use the GR1 grip on the ZFC.
Yeah, those are coming in now.
We have them in stock, but we didn't get a demo one. And I thought, I don't necessarily want to take one from stock to use for the sake of a single video, because I think, I mean, we don't use stock that we're then going to sell as new. We don't open brand new stock. Either it's demo or it's brand new, and it's two very separate things. But I thought, for the sake of having it for like 2 weeks, would it be worth me ordering the Small Rig one? I know that Randall is a big fan of the Small Rig grip. And actually, generally, you've got the Small Rig for your Z6.
Yes, I use it all the time. It's amazing.
Yeah, and you keep it on.
Yeah.
I have the three-legged thing, Zelda, for my Z6. And I love that. I don't always keep it on, though, because I actually like the camera to be a little bit smaller. So I only keep it on if I know I'm going to be using my tripod that day. I know the whole idea is that it gives you just an extra...
Shall we talk about the size of hands? And
my hands are not much smaller than yours. I just prefer something smaller and lighter. So I personally already have the 16-50 for my Z50. If I were buying a ZFC, I would get the 28mm with it. But if I didn't already have a 16-50, I would go for the ZFC with the 16-50 kit, then buy a 28mm separately. Yeah. In the UK, we finally got, because someone else was asking, Kevin was asking when the 28mm are shipping. So the special edition single unit lenses actually started shipping this week. We got our first batch. They went straight out the door immediately. And we will probably, hopefully, get some more at some point soon. Now, the non-special edition, there is no release date officially, but presumably it's going to be December 2021. That's what I've heard on the grapevine. I don't think there's an official release date yet, but it would be really good to know when they're actually coming out. You can now order them from our website if you so desire.
Randall's got 2 demos. Do you want them?
2 Small Rigs.
I assume.
Oh, wow. That would be amazing.
The only concern is shipping from the United States.
Yeah, that might be expensive. But if you get a shipping quote, Randall, tell me and we will sort that out. That would be incredible. You have my email address. You know where I am. That would be incredible. And then we could test them out on our demo, ZFC. Mark Thompson says, still use my 28mm f2.8 AI on the D800 for landscapes. It's sharp with good contrast. That's great, Mark, actually, because I do think that a lot of people have this consideration about using older glass on newer cameras or higher resolution cameras. And I think that it depends on the kind of photography you are, but I think a lot of people read maybe a bit too much into it.
I think it's just the way the whole internet works, that you want, like, all we talk about the latest and greatest. Yes. And a lot of people don't read. It doesn't mean that you can't use old stuff on the new cameras. The reason why we say, let's say, this lens is particularly better, let's say, than this one, let's say, because it's designed for digital sensor from ground up and it's optimized for that.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean it's going to be day and night difference. It doesn't mean that, let's say, one of the older lenses won't produce good image quality. It's just the internet, we tend to think that one thing is better than another one, but it's very difficult to put a number on how much different they are, you know. So that's why a lot of people say, just get the latest and greatest and be done with it. Yeah, exactly. And I think a bit like with the Z lenses, so the 28... So what have we got in Zs? We've got a 20, we've got a 24. And we've got a 35.
And we've got a 35. Yeah. We're missing the 28.
For some reason, I thought the 28 existed, and I was surprised that it did.
I swear that when we got the 20 and the 24, the 28 was on the roadmap, and then it got taken away.
Yeah.
And I wonder why that is.
I think 2818 will be released, regardless, because
in the meantime,
design is there, I believe. You know, it's not much different from design of 24mm per se. So I personally think it needs to be there, and it's nice to have 2.8 version as a cheaper alternative as well. Yeah, exactly. The one benefit I would say from getting native glass for either your Z or your DSLR or whatever you're using is just exactly what Roy has just said, which is, unlike Z glass, older glass does tend to soften wide open. And
This is my secret weapon. You can't show people that. No, we'll talk about it in a minute. So it's very true. If I was actually having a little look through our archives at the 50mm 1.2 review earlier, and I realized that I'd done this test. I have the 55 1.2 AI, and I compared it wide open with the 50 1.2 AIS and then the 50mm f1.2 Z lens. And wide open, it's like chalk and cheese. The Z lens is 1-for-1 are sharp wide open. Not a single one isn't that I've discovered. Whereas with, as Roy said, the older glass, you do tend to suffer a bit with quality wide open. And then as soon as you stop down even a little bit, you get a huge improvement.
That's true. I mean, we just recently compared. I did a comparison between 135 Nikon lens and 135 Sigma lens, and 135 f2 Nikon one has been designed around the film era. So, and the 135 1.8 art lens Sigma came out very recently. The difference is there.
Yeah,
it's different. You do get, as you say, like it's the rendering on Nikon is very pleasing, but you can see it's not optimized for digital camera per se. So it doesn't mean you can't use it.
No, exactly. Borderlands says for portraits or video, older lenses look great.
Yeah.
And I tend to agree. There are certain things where a manual focus lens or a piece of kind of heritage glass looks particularly good. I'll let you guys in on a sort of, probably not a secret so much, but a little bit of a piece of trade information. A lot of the cinematography companies now, don't look at me like that, a lot of the cinematography companies now are buying these old manual focus lenses, usually the wide aperture ones. 28 f2 is one of them. This one, no, I have one that actually has come back to us because it's got something in it. But there's a couple of companies now that are buying these wide aperture pieces of glass. They've even bought Nocts, if you know the Noct, the 58mm.
They're not cheap.
Not cheap at all. 35 1.4, 28 f2. They tend 24 f2. They tend to avoid the 20 because there isn't a wider aperture than the 2.8. Then they go down to the sort of 15mm f3.5s for the super wide angle. But they've been buying these older lenses in large batches. And then what they do is they actually send them off to a company in the US and they rehouse them so that they're specifically used in cine cameras.
And that sometimes would cost more than the price of the lens itself.
Yeah, way more. But it's very interesting because then you think, well, what of these movies that I'm watching or TV programs or whatever, which ones are shot on Nikon glass? You won't know because the Nikon lens is no longer sitting on the front of the camera. It's been rehoused in something else. But I think it just is a testament to the quality of the Nikon glass.
But also, you know, if you look at those lenses nowadays, that people buy in one of those latest and greatest glass and then they put some pro mist filters on them, and that would cause a little bit of softening just because they're too sharp.
Yeah.
You know, so like then you think, well, why would you do that if you can just get a second-hand lens and then, you know, here you go, you got the same result.
Yeah, exactly. Siddharth asks, why are the Z lenses sharper than the F-mount glass? What's new? Long list of answers to that.
The mount is the main one.
This is the primary reason. As Tom then explains, the flange distance is shorter and is wider, lets them do optics differently. They have redesigned all of those lenses. So they're not sort of like a copy and paste, let's just change the F mount. You actually do get a redesigned lens. And the fact that they don't have to make it to fit a DSLR with the mirror in the way and that flange distance between the sensor and the back of the lens means that they actually can do entirely new things with their lenses to make them sharper. There's also different coatings. They've been very creative recently.
Well, the Z mount is the largest mount of full frame cameras currently being produced. But also there's another one that, like this lens, 21.4 and also 105 1.4
Beautiful
is
lens.
one of them, is one of the first lenses that was designed with the new methodology of designing the lenses. So effectively, back in the day, the lenses would have to be designed basically on a piece of paper, roughly, then create the prototype, test it, redo it. So you would end up with something like 10, 15 prototypes. So it would take years for them to actually release a lens. Nowadays, they can design the lens on the computer, simulate how the light is going to work on the computer. So that's how good that they got. So it's effectively creates like a lot less prototypes. So you can design lens a lot faster, a lot cheaper, and and at the same time produce the better image quality as well. So the F-mount lens like 28 1.4E and 105 1.4E, they were the first ones of that. Now you add the Z-mount on top of that, and that elevates your image quality even more than that. So,
yeah, it's very true. I think the 28 and the 105, and the only other one that I would consider to be particularly special, but is not one of those new lenses, is the 58 1.4G.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe that's just because of the focal length and the way that lens was designed. But I read something a few years back about how Nikon was simulating the effects of their lenses and basically tweaking the specs through a computer simulation. And that was how they were ending up with these amazing. This is why things like the 120 to 300 and the 180 to 400, they're something else. That's why even the 500 PF, which is not the size and heft of that big 500 f4, is so good. I mean, it's such a great lens. I have to say, Matt from London, I pinned his comment because I wanted to read it. But for anyone who was questioning the radioactivity thing, said, you can undo yellow buildup on thorium lenses by shining light through the lens for 24 hours or so. Scatters radioactive particles. I do this once per year on my lens. So thank you very much for that tip. That's really, really helpful. And Terry pointed out UV light will reduce the yellowing. There we go.
That's
UV light. So there we go.
Very interesting, yeah.
I also have to say another thank you to Randall.
Thank you, Randall.
Again, 3 times. So yes, we will be delighted to have your small rigs for demos. Please let me know how much it costs for you to post them, and I will pay you for that because that's very, very kind of you, and we will try them out. And our pleasure, Siddharth. I'm glad that we could hopefully answer your question. Roy says the 28 1.8G lens is one of the best. I had one.
You had one?
Yeah, I had one for a good number of years. And the only reason that I sold it was because I was going to get the Z mount version. And then other things came out and I bought those instead.
Too many instructions.
So it's like, oh, look, a butterfly. Yeah. Yes. That's me.
But what's your opinion on 21.8Z? Because a lot of people say it's even better than the F-mount version.
It is. It's very similar in a lot of ways. Characteristic-wise, color rendition-wise, I found it to be incredibly similar. But the 1.8 version as well has a lot of sort of, I would say, internal things helping it out. It's if you turn off the vignette control, for example, then it does vignette, not as much as the F-mount version, but it's there, as would be expected from a 20mm lens. It has very, very low distortion. It's very sharp, edge to edge. But I never had a complaint about the F-mount version.
No,
in terms of
I remember
sharpness.
the distortion on F-mount version was amazing. I remember when we went to the launch event. I think it was like D7000 launch or something.
It was the D750.
D750, okay,
Yeah.
not 7000.
An SB500 and 20mm.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Becky remembers.
I remember.
So anyway,
I remember where it was as well. It was in the Cafe Royal
in the
Hotel.
Piccadilly, yes. But the distortion was really good. It was a tiny room, very dark, and I remember doing test shots and being quite surprised by the distortion. Yeah.
Exactly. That was the event where I was like, I want one of those and one of those and one of those, and basically bought everything that came out.
Which company shall I order it from?
Let me think. But the 21.8G was and still is a fantastic lens. I'd say if you don't want a wide angle zoom because they're big and heavy, like the 1424, 1635, they're great lenses but quite heavy, and you want a wide angle prime just for that one purpose, and the 20 is great. You can focus very, very closely as well. But enough about 20 mils. Let's talk about the 28. So Dave says, I'd like a walkabout prime to round out my fast primes. Would favor 28, but as the Z20 f1.8 is unlikely for the foreseeable, I may get a 24 while the cashback is on. Do we have in stock? I think so. You have to check our website, Dave, because the stock is downstairs and we're like 2 floors above. So I'm not actually sure.
I'll run down.
Yeah, thank you. But I do think we have them in stock. They're not something that has been difficult to source recently, thankfully. The cashback is actually a really good point. There's quite a lot of things. It's not cashback per se, used to be. It's instant savings. So you just get instant discounts off stuff now. Have a look at our website if you're in the UK, or in Europe. We ship all over the world, but you have to order over the phone if you're outside of the UK.
I think in USA they're called instant rebate.
Oh, nice. Yeah. It's a good way to put it. Pierre Louis said, do the special edition 28 and the black have the same optical quality?
Yes.
Identical, in fact. So I'd say if you're not so worried about the styling, should we call it the styling?
Yeah, I think so.
Then the non-special edition version. That's all right. The non-special edition version is identical, and I'm not going to be doing a separate review on the non-special edition. We're kind of bundling it into the. We're going to do the. We've got the 28 and the 40 as one review.
Exactly.
And then I've got the 28 on the ZFC as the ZFC review, but we won't do one for it on its own. At least.
I got a fly in my
That's
throat.
so annoying when they just fly into your throat.
That's why I don't talk much.
So rude.
I'm afraid of the flies.
No, I hate that when that happens. Then you can't move it. So interesting. Roy was answering Peter. Okay. So Peter said the 21.8S is much better, like night and day. That's an interesting observation, actually, Peter. So you've obviously had both or used both. I'd be interested to know in what scenarios you found it to be dramatically different. Because in the tests that I did, which were all kind of daylight tests, it was actually during lockdown that lens came out. And I had to get, because I couldn't come into London, I had to get someone to post it to me so that I could then test it for a week. And then I had to send it to Simon Stafford. It was like this like weird roundabout thing. I compared the F mount. I had the F mount still with me at that point, and I did side-by-side comparisons on the Z6, and I was like, it is better, but I didn't see a huge difference. I found it slightly higher contrast, though. Peter says, no coma in the corners. Astrophotography. This is an important thing. Someone did ask earlier on about astrophotography and what the best 28 is for astrophotography. I would say if you can afford it, this one is the best in terms of no coma, like basically no chromatic aberration. It has all the coatings that you could possibly need to help you with astro work.
Yeah, and also 1.4 helps.
And the 1.4 helps dramatically. Saying that, if you can't stretch to the sort of £1,500, dollars, they're all about the same price. Totally understood. You can, the differences between the AFD and the AIS are quite minimal. If you have a little look on the website that I was showing you before, which is photosynthesis, it actually under specifications, I'm going to find it for you, and then I'm going to show you. Here we go. So under the specifications tab, you can actually see the elements and groups, right? So this, for example, if we're looking at the 28 2.8s, the AIS had 8 elements and 8 groups. The AFD had 6 elements and 6 groups. So there is a difference in optical construction between those, but it also allows you to see the differences between all of the different versions. I find it quite useful as a point of reference if you kind of want to know what they did between one iteration and the other. Jan said this was so interesting that he forgot his coffee. I'm so glad.
You too. Actually.
You too. It's coffee time.
Yes.
We are actually going to run out of time shortly, so I want to make sure. As you brought this,
yes,
I'm going to show it to the class.
Or shall we just leave it here for people to guess what the thing is?
What is it? They can't see it's out of frame. Okay. No points if you guess what this is, but this is a little something something. It says Nikon Japan N to F on it. It's not for sale. It is mine. And I'm not ever letting it go.
My precious.
Yeah, it is really like, it's like the One Ring. It truly is. This is, drumroll please, a Nikon Rangefinder to Nikon F-mount adapter. So my idea is at some point I'm going to put on a rangefinder lens, and then I'm going to put it on my FTZ, and then I'm going to put it on my Z6, and I'm going to try out some rangefinder lenses.
Wow.
On that. I know. Something else, right?
Yeah, we should definitely do a video about this.
Yeah.
So, you know they have FTZ adapter. This is NTF adapter.
NTF. Yeah, exactly. Apparently there were a couple of versions of it according to the Nikon compendium, which, because I looked it up, I think it was a Nikon compendium that it was in. And this is one of the last versions.
Okay, quick question. Does it provide EXIF data to the camera?
No. In fact, a lot of those focal lengths are a bit odd. So, and apertures. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to even program.
No, the lenses don't have the chips anyway.
No, but I don't even know if in non-CPU lens data I'm going to be able to tell it what the lens is.
I think you can potentially set up the focal distance and the aperture.
Yeah.
But that's as much as you could do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, Liam, thank you for your input. That's really helpful. Liam says the 28 1.8G is a good low-cost lens for astro general stuff. It's not a million miles worse than my 1.4E. So Peter says the 28mm is too long. Now, this is interesting because I see different people basically use different focal lengths for astro work. I've read many sort of beginner tutorials where they say, look, if you don't have a wide angle lens, you can even use a 50. But I see what you mean in terms of, because you have to use your focal lengths to judge your exposure time. The wider lenses are generally better. It allows longer exposures if you want star trails and things like that. This is a whole different stream.
But from the other point of view, if you only have 28 and nothing wider, then just go with it. At least you try.
Yeah.
And then you'll know, okay, if it doesn't work so well, then potentially if astro thing is your thing, then you can save up some money and then buy a wide angle lens.
Yeah, exactly. The Will Rogers says it's interesting how much space is needed inside the NTF. Yeah, I actually thought it was going to be a much smaller item as well. I wonder if it's going to act a little bit like an extension tube. I have to test it.
Do you reckon you're going to get some crop in there as well?
I don't think it will be cropped, but I think that my closest focusing distance is going to change. Luckily, with a Z camera, what you see is what you get.
That's true.
It's quite easy to focus. You've got your focus peaking in the viewfinder. It's all very useful. And the final use for a 28mm, as Roy said, 28 is great for street photography.
I absolutely agree with you. That was my choice of 28.
Yeah.
So street photography, that's what you need it for.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Now, because I didn't get a chance to do this last week, I have 2 competitions for you this week. Thank you for everyone's comments on the subject of 28s. This has been a fantastic discussion. It's kept me going this afternoon. I was flagging a bit earlier. So we've got 2 competitions. We had a couple of weeks ago, we had the beetroot competition.
The beetroot, yes, okay.
That is for the Vanguard camera bag.
Ooh, who's getting the backpack?
I really hope that it's someone that we can post to.
Yeah. Someone in UK.
Oh, I actually have to say a quick announcement before I do that. So Per Sjöholm, I hope I pronounced your surname correctly in Swedish. We had a problem with customs getting your prize to you. So if you are watching at any point, please drop us an email to media@grayswestminster.co.uk. We're going to send you something else instead, but I don't have your email address. It went through customs twice and got returned. So
yeah, apparently they don't allow notebooks to Sweden.
It's really annoying. So hopefully we'll be able to post this lovely roll top bag. Let's see what we can do. So the prize was beetroot. I actually have to change the page.
The prize was a
the prize was you are getting a beetroot as part of this. I'm just going to move this along a little bit so it's a bit more centralized. So pick the winner is not working.
The suspense.
Suspense is killing me.
Drum roll.
It's Adrian. Yay.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Well done. So Adrian, if you're watching now or later after the fact, please drop us an email to media@grayswestminster.co.uk with your address details. We will get this sent to you, and I hope you're not in Timbuktu. No offense to anyone living in Timbuktu, just very difficult to post to. Right, so that's the beetroot competition. Now, last week we did an avocado competition.
Did it? Okay, what about broccoli? Oh, it's all done
broccoli
already.
we did ages ago.
Okay.
And there were only 27 entrants on this one. And I think it was in part because the word avocado is quite difficult to spell, apparently. So for this week's prize, I have, this is beautiful. This is a Phil McKenna Ghosts of the Sky 2022 calendar, so it's actually relevant. Now, Phil is an amazing aviator photographer. If you haven't seen his work, please do check it out. But he's a friend of the shop, friend of Gray's, and he's done a couple of articles for us in Nikon Owner, and he very, very kindly sent us not 1 but 2 calendars for prizes.
Nice one.
So this is one prize this week. We'll do another one for next week. So for that, the avocado people... Sounds so weird. Let me just do this. For the avocados, the winner is... Rob Richardson.
Congratulations.
Yay. Congratulations. So very, very well done, Rob. If you could let us know your contact details so we can send this to you. Once again, the email address is media@grayswestminster.co.uk. So what did we say? This is the one. I'm going to just give them a sneak peek. This is the one for next week.
Ooh.
Yeah, different front cover. Still a 2022 calendar, but it's just the one for next week.
Still for next year?
Still for 2022, yeah.
Okay.
So what's our keyword?
Papaya.
Oh, good. Okay, papaya. So not in the live chat. but in the comments after we finish the stream.
And it's too late.
Someone's already put papaya.
That's it.
So if you could pop it in the comments below once we finish the stream, we will draw names next week, provided that I remember. Excellent. We're all done.
Ooh, next week is a Black Friday week.
Yes. So next week we're going to be doing a very special shopping special.
It's gonna be a shopping channel with Becky and Con.
Yeah, something like that. A little bit like, what do they call it? CVS, NSP? I don't know. There's shopping channels. We're not actually going to do that. We're going to keep it quite chilled on the Black Friday side of things.
Come here to Great Westminster and buy
Come
yourself
down. But we will actually have quite a few exciting offers. Some of them have already started. If you have a little look on our website and you see there are some items in secondhand which are already discounted, but we're going to have even more discounts next week because we don't like to do things on a Friday, and for us we call it Royal Blue Friday for obvious reasons. We are actually starting our offers on Tuesday the 23rd, so you've got a little bit of time, but we'll be here next week. Hopefully you'll be here joining us. Thank you everybody for your contributions to the Coffee Fund, for being present this afternoon. Have a lovely week and a weekend.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
bye.